We're calling all writers, storytellers and creators of tales of the paranormal and supernatural. Do you have a spine-tingling story that's too chilling to keep to yourself? If the answer is yes, then wherever you are in the world, the Haunted UK Fiction Podcast wants to hear from you. Whether you're a published author, an aspiring writer, or someone with a natural gift for storytelling, this is your chance to share your work with a global audience of listeners who crave the eerie, the unexplained, the otherworldly. We're looking for original fictional short stories or novellas with strong paranormal or supernatural themes. Your stories can be suspenseful, mysterious, atmospheric, terrifying, thought-provoking, even darkly magical. If your story is selected, we'll professionally narrate, record, mix, and master it into an audiobook-style format, then feature it on the show. You'll get a copy of the finished production to use however you like, and you'll retain full ownership of your work. There are no fees, no contracts, and no hidden jargon. Your story deserves to be heard. Whether it's a tale that's been haunting your notebook for years, or maybe something that you're finally ready to unleash, this is your chance to bring it to life. To submit your story for consideration, email us at hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. And don't forget to follow the show on Instagram at hauntedukfiction. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to Haunted UK Fiction, a sister podcast to the Haunted UK, which features original flash fiction, short stories and novellas with paranormal themes. All stories you will hear were written by a collection of talented writers, authors and storytellers, both independent and professional. In today's episode, we'll be reading Mother Never Liked Dead Things, which was sent in to us by S.C. Fisher. Welsh horror author S.C. Fisher was raised on a diet of R.L. Stein books and Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes. She now resides in Suffolk, in one of the most haunted towns in England, with her family. Her 6-book horror series, Base Fear, published by Raven Tale and available now on Amazon, explores 3 real-life haunted military bases and the terrifying experiences of the young families that reside at them. Now get comfortable, grab a little something to sip on, perhaps cuddle up under a blanket to help offset the chills coming your way, and let's dive into the story. For a time there was a feral cat that lived in the stables beside the orchard. Whenever the wind blew in from the north, the cat grew daring in its pursuit of warmth. It would encroach upon the house to bargain for more pleasant lodgings, with throaty purrs and the occasional nudge of its flea-infested head. The kitchen girls indulged its mischief by offering saucers of milk and fish guts in abundance, which was an impertinence I chose to overlook. In truth, I enjoyed the way the Tom would curl up at the foot of my bed whilst I slept, and how its remaining eye twinkled when he happened upon me in the halls. It was pleasant to consider, if only for a flicker, that my presence might kindle some happiness within another living soul. Mother was completely oblivious until Tom took to scattering rodent corpses about the parlour. Cook proclaimed them to be gifts, tokens of gratitude awarded as payment for the scraps we acquiesced to sharing with him. Shame that he did not consider jewels or fine silks a suitable offering. Mother held great affection for those. I'll never forget her screams when she discovered a decapitated field mouse upon the piano bench, nor the way her eyes rolled into the back of her head as she folded to the floor in a boneless heap. For his crimes against propriety, Tom was sentenced to exile. I might have wept for him. However, I was a young lady of good breeding and high status, and such behaviour was unseemly. Nevertheless, when I heard whispers from the maids that the stable hand had drowned the wretched puss in the river upon my mother's request, I bit my tongue clean through to keep from wailing. Poor Tom. If only he had known that Mother did not like dead things. A few weeks later, any lingering distress I harboured at the demise of the cat was forgotten. For, only a few weeks later, I was dead too. Father bought the mare for my 12th birthday. It was healthy, handsome, but inadequately broken in. Regardless, Mother insisted that I was to ride side saddle, as proper young ladies should. I managed her instruction a handful of times before the horse became spooked by a murder of crows, then bucked me from its back, with such ease that I myself might have been made entirely of feathers. I do not recall the specific moment of impact, merely the blinding agony of it. The pain, a ravenous beast, devoured me inside seconds, and this swiftness was the final blessing I was to receive. When I awoke again, it was to darkness. I'd been hopeful for my bed, to find myself ensconced in blankets with my beloved governess by my side, mopping my brow. Instead, 4 solid wooden walls bore down upon me. I feared that I should hyperventilate. I soon learned that this was an impossible eventuality when air had been rendered a ghost within one's lungs. Swaddled in my shroud, I could do naught but await the arrival of the worms that would return my body to Mother Nature's keep. I imagined them, voracious, with teeth that nibbled and gnawed, working their way from my toenails to the crest of my forehead. Perhaps they would leave my eyes till last, savour the jelly and juice, and feast until the viscous orbs popped like soap bubbles in a boisterous breeze. Once they were finished with me, I hoped that my soul would be free to cross over. I tried not to dwell upon the fact that it might be years before such an occurrence, decades whiled away beneath the soil, with only my memories of a painfully short life to console me. I could not even manage to shudder at the prospect. As it happened, I had not long to wait for salvation. The tip of a shovel splintered my wooden ceiling. I did not flinch simply because I could not flinch. Whilst I appeared tethered to my physical form, I was evidently no longer the mistress of it. It took my rescuer a further 5 fierce blows with the spade to shatter the coffin, and how I wished I might have smiled at them in appreciation for their efforts. Instead, I lay prone, staring into a moonless sky with eyes frozen wide by the finality of death. Should I regard it as a kindness that the undertaker had neglected to close them? This remained to be determined. When the face of the groundskeeper swam into view, I was bemused. I had barely exchanged several words with him whilst alive, and I could not fathom why he, of all people, might exhibit interest in my fate. Father's voice echoed in the hollow of my ear with all his warnings to steer clear of unsavoury fellows and their unsavoury desires, and, whilst I was doubtlessly dead, I was suddenly not entirely without fear. "'Tis done, madam," he declared in his rough brogue. Then he spat into the mound of dirt piled by his heel. "'Tis unnatural, if you're to ask me." "I did not," came the tart reply. "Mother, against all the odds, she had come for me." Even as my confusion mounted, I strived to bury it, too thankful for my liberation to question it. I was carried from the churchyard like a babe in arms, across winding country lanes and cattle fields, until we reached the house that I had called home from my birth. Mother walked too for once, which was perhaps a first for the woman who favoured the comfort of a carriage above the dignity of her own steam. Whilst she did not touch me, she scarcely looked away, and I was cheered by her presence in ways that were new to us both. At last we reached home, and I was swept into the nursery via the servants' staircase. When Mother trod those same boards, following so willingly in my wake, I almost died all over again. She was a lady of station, who was never, at least in all the years I had known her, reduced herself to anything less. A great bloom of affection swelled in my chest, and I hardly noticed when the groundskeeper forced me into a chair so recklessly that there was a distinct snap. "Careful, you brute!" Mother scolded as she crouched by my side. My position was such that I could not see the man to deduce if he was suitably chagrined. However, when Mother dismissed him, he disappeared without a further word. Mother spent the next hours singing sweetly to me, whilst she brushed out my golden hair, showering the carpet with soil and scuttling bugs. I listened with rapt attention, indifferent when she hit a snarl and ripped a clump from my scalp. She fussed dreadfully over the skin that came with it, but I no longer minded such trivial things. Mother was with me, and this was all that mattered. She worked at my nails next. She took the brush to them and polished until they shone in the candlelight. When she raised my stiff hand to eye level so that I might examine it, I couldn't help but note that my greying skin had shriveled to the bone. I had withered like a plum in the warm summer sun. Reading my mind, Mother said with some measure of regret, "You have been away longer than I would have liked. I was forced to wait for Father to return to the city before I could fetch you." By morning, I was redressed in my finery. The shroud had burned in the grate, and in its place there was the emerald green gown that I had been gifted for Christmas. The lace about the collar might once have itched appallingly, but it was no longer a bother. Mother smiled at me, tears streaking her cheeks, and I had never felt more adored. It might not be so bad, I dared to ponder, if every day of the after was similar to this. Gradually, it became evident that Mother planned to make certain changes within the household in order to better accommodate our situation. With Father away, preoccupied with business, she presided over her dominion like a queen. My dear governess was let go first, a natural occurrence given her sudden lack of a charge. However, Mother's decision to whittle the rest of the household down to a skeleton staff was somewhat more confusing. Her motives for this came to light when she gathered the enduring help inside the walls of the abandoned nursery. "You, the lucky few, have been allowed to remain. Should I find that any one amongst you has uttered a word on this matter outside this house, I shall be forced to cut the tongues out of each and every one of your heads. Do I make myself perfectly clear?" Those who doubted she might be capable of as much perhaps did not remember Tom. With panic rooted in their eyes, they readily agreed, and Mother had me moved from nursery to parlour, which was a welcome change of scenery. We took tea together every morning and every afternoon. Or rather, Mother took tea, whilst I stared into the ether. When my eyelids threatened to stutter closed, muscles wasted by disuse, Mother cleverly solved the problem with a handful of dressmaker's pins. In our time together, I came to know her as much more than the vapid woman I had thought her to be. She was bright, she could be charming, and she professed to have loved me so very much that even her loathing of dead things could not stop her from rescuing me. For the very first time, I knew my mother's genuine affection and, tentatively, I began to return it. The day I nudged the teacup from the table, Mother's excitement was palpable. Of course, I had not done so with my hands, which were gloved and clasped in my lap forevermore, but with my will alone. It seemed that the longer I lingered, the stronger my presence grew, and Mother was delighted. She spent many hours thereafter coaching me, holding out cups and handkerchiefs and trinkets, encouraging me to fling them away. Eventually, I managed it, one item after another: teaspoon, hairbrush, vase. Mother applauded and danced around the room, cackling until the groundskeeper was sent by the others to see about the fuss. "She did it! She moved them!" exclaimed Mother, as the man watched through narrowed eyes that conveyed simmering disapproval. Before he could retreat from the room, I managed to propel a milk jug at his square head, and Mother giggled as he fled like Lucifer nipped his heels. We began to communicate. Mother would set words written on paper upon the table, and I would glide Father's empty whiskey tumbler to my selection. Yes, and no questions worked best, but occasionally Mother would add in other words for our amusement. Even as my physical body continued to wither, and Mother was forced to hang mothballs from my neck or to sit with the windows gaping wide open to cover my stench, my spiritual presence continued to evolve. On the day that I managed to step free of my meat, I let loose a scream of delight that went unheard by all. I didn't spare a second glance for the husk, shriveled as it was, slumped in the chair, looking pitiful and pruned in its once lovely gown. Indeed, I burst from the parlour to explore the halls that I had so keenly missed. My spirit was invisible in ways that my corpse was not. However, I derived pleasure in the fact that Mother seemed to be able to sense it, no matter where I wandered. Our hands may not have been able to make purchase, but our minds certainly could. The servants were also sensitive to my presence, it seemed, especially when I crept up behind them to draw icy fingers across the napes of their necks, or to whisper obscenities into their ears. There were freedoms that death allowed me, certain things that could now be said and done, and I revelled in them all. Everything changed for the worst in September, when Father elected to return home. Mother had tried to put him off, though her efforts were in vain. All she could do was ready the staff and prepare to divulge her sordid secret to the man with the power to strip it away from her. She was hopeful that he would at least understand her motivations. As it so happened, he did not. My mamma stood behind my regular chair in the parlour, one arm curved around my shoulder, as Father gawked at the remnants of my corpse with undisguised horror paling his whiskered cheeks. I watched from the corner, expecting the worst, and unable to dispel the chill that I seemed to invite wherever I roamed. "What have you done?" demanded Father, and Mother bristled at the affront. She had always been the one to run things, the one in charge. She would not be spoken to like some silly scullery maid. "I have brought our darling girl home," she countered. Father began to tremble all over, so violently that I feared he was poised to suffer some sort of apoplexy. "Darling girl," he sneered, anger flushing his neck. "She was never your darling girl. You thought her an inconvenience, a frivolous child, a blasted menace, until she died and you were robbed of your chance." I hissed from my post, provoked to offence on Mother's behalf, and she seemed to incline her head towards the sound. Father had not noticed. He stalked towards Mother with malice in every measured pace. "What you have done is an affront to God, and an affront to our daughter's memory. You have gone quite mad. I will have no part in this." "I am perfectly sane," retorted Mother, her fingers clenching on the shoulder of my cadaver. "I mourned my child. Therefore I brought her home. She is where she belongs. She is with the Lord." Father's bellow startled me, and I pressed my hand to my breast as though I might feel the rapid flutter of the heartbeat that so often accompanies fear. I did not. Sometimes it took a moment to remember how far beyond all of that I had wandered. "She is here," Mother replied, and this time her tone was more measured. "I feel her. She lingers. She is home." "Darling," he implored. It resembled a moan, and I froze at the peculiarity of the sound. "You are ill. I should never have left you. I realize now, but this is not right." Mother regarded him, and the fact that I could not decipher her expression alarmed me. Should I find my body returned to the belly of the earth, I feared that I might also find my soul dragged along in tow. I loathed the cold, dark silence, and I refused to be sacrificed to it once more. Thus, I made my impetuous decision. The cake slice lay upon the table, abandoned in plain view when Cook had entered earlier with the tea tray. Mother and Father blathered on, yet I registered little of the exchange. Something about a priest, arrangements, the blasted undertaker. Indeed, there would be call for them all. I raised the blade with a glance. The moment that Father noted how it hovered and wheeled in the air became obvious from the expression upon his face. Disbelief, uncertainty, at last, wild terror. With a supple twist of my will, I sluiced it towards its target, striking the mark and embedding there the squelch. There was a moment of peaceful silence in the parlour as Mother and Father gawked at each other, digesting the unexpected event that had transpired. The body dropped with a thud, slumped forward, face kissing the hearth rug. Blood seeping from the wound opened at the base of the neck. I glided from the room before the screaming began, abandoning them both to the consequences of my actions. That was some time ago now. Upon the evening that her body was committed to the grave, Mother returned to the house, in spirit at least. Father had us buried side by side in a plot that left room for his addition upon his inevitable demise. I could not care less for that day to arrive. I have Mother. She is all that I need. Death has not come as easily to her as it did to me. We no longer take tea together. She does not brush my hair or croon lullabies in my ear. She prowls the halls, hair streaming loose, caterwauling and sobbing at the witching hour, so that even the living are drawn from their rest by her woeful song. When I try to talk to her, she stares so deeply into my soul that I worry she might tumble completely inside it. When I try to take her hand, she recoils from my touch as though it is fire and she is flesh. But she is not flesh. Not any more. After some contemplation, I believe that I may have deduced the problem, although Mother had dampened her fear. For family, for love, for me, she had never truly expunged it. It is quite simple, really. Mother never liked dead things. And now, she is one. That brings us to the end of this episode. We truly hope you enjoyed this bone-chilling tale. If you would like to hear more from S.C. Fisher, keep an eye on her website and social media, as she is currently working on a pink horror zombie apocalypse novel that focuses on navigating toxic friendships at the end of the world. All necessary links and contact information can be found in the show's notes. If you have an original story that would send a chill down our spines, and you would like to submit it for review, simply send it in to hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. That's hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. Until the next time, stay safe and take care.